This case takes place in Melbourne, Australia, in the 90s and the noughties. In an intense period of Melbourne's criminal history, the city witnessed an exceptional wave of highly publicised murders, targeting known or suspected criminals. The media labelled this violent era as the Gangland War. Today's case focuses on one of the most notorious figures in Melbourne's Gangland War, a man responsible for a string of brutal killings, yet known for his unassuming baby face. His reign of terror left a lasting impact on the city's underground. Stick around until the end to uncover his ultimate fate. But before we start, a big thank you to today's sponsor, Extra Wallets. This is one of the rare few times that I've been excited about a wallet in my life. Upgrade yours today and get up to 55% off. I've been using Extra for some time, and I actually swapped from a rival competitor, as it's pretty much superior in every way. Extra has this feature where with just one click, your cards pop out, and the wallets hold between 1 to 14 cards. They're also incredibly slim. They fit perfectly in the pocket without the awkward bulk. The wallets also have RFID protection. In today's age, you can't just use a regular wallet anymore. People can now use a device to tap your normal wallet and take your bank card information, and more importantly, your money. With these wallets, you're protected from such scammers. And if you're clumsy like me, you can use their trackable technology. You can buy Extra's GPS tracker to add into your wallet. It's solar powered and lets you track your wallet's location from your mobile phone. 2 hours in the sun equals 3 months of charge. And their wallets are made with premium materials. With Christmas on the horizon, treat a loved one. You can check Extra out in the pinned comment or in the description. Use code DISTURBING at checkout and you'll get up to 55% off. And now, on to the video. Carl Williams was born on the 13th of October 1970 in Broadmeadows, Melbourne, a working-class suburb in North Melbourne rife with criminality. Carl was the second son of George and Barbara Williams. His older brother Shane was someone he looked up to deeply. The family didn't have much, but they were close. Shane was very attached to his father, while Carl stuck to his mother. Growing up, Carl was cheerful and active, but as he grew older, he gained weight, and he struggled at school. After leaving school, Carl worked as a labourer. His brother Shane, however, took a different path. Instead of honest work, he became involved in crime. He fell into heroin addiction and became skilled at theft and burglary. Carl watched and took note. Loyal to his brother, he began stepping into Melbourne's underworld to support Shane. At first, Carl entered the world of criminality, acting as a lookout for his brother Shane. But during one incident, Carl was caught by the police. However, they weren't interested in him. They wanted information on his brother. They allegedly beat Kyle to pressure him to inform, but he stayed silent, refusing to betray his brother. Following this, his involvement in crime steadily escalated from there, and by 1994, Carl had advanced to drug trafficking. He soon found himself introduced to some of Melbourne's inner criminal circles, where he quickly made an impression. He became known as the new kid on the block. He often took on work for the notorious Moran family, a name infamous in Melbourne's criminal history. The head of the Moran family, Lewis Moran, was born in 1941 and became a prominent figure in Melbourne's criminal scene. His wife, Judy Moran, had a son named Mark Cole in 1964 with her first husband, the notorious criminal Leslie Cole. Mark later changed his name to Moran, adopting the family name. And in 1967, Judy and Lewis had another son called Jason. By the early 1990s, Jason and Mark were making a name for themselves. Carl Williams maintained a good relationship with the family. However, he caused a minor rift that the Morans saw as disrespectful. One of the family's gang members abused his wife, Roberta. When Carl found out about this, he offered her support and treated her with kindness. Over time, he convinced her to leave her husband and start a life with him. In 1997, Carl and Roberta got together. In 1997, Shane Williams fatally overdosed on heroin. For Carl, his death became a turning point, and ironically, he turned to drug manufacturing as a business. Carl sought the help of Danielle Maguire. She owned a pill press, and soon enough, Carl came up with his own recipe for ecstasy. The year was now 1999. Carl's pill operation technically made him a competitor to the Morans. So to keep an eye on him, they entered into a joint venture. Working closely together, Mark and Carl became good friends. But tensions grew, as Carl was selling his products for a lower price than the Morans. On one occasion, several containers of chemicals disappeared, and a large batch of products was destroyed. Suspicious, Jason and Mark accused Carl. They roughed him up and pistol-whipped him. Carl swore that he wasn't responsible, but the final blow to their working relationship was when Mark began dating Danielle Maguire, the woman who was helping Carl create his ecstasy. Mark demanded access to the pill press that Carl had been using. This left Carl furious. So in response, Carl sabotaged the pill press, trying to make it look like just general wear and tear. However, Mark and Jason weren't easily fooled. They quickly found out that Carl had sabotaged the pill press. Furious, a meeting was held where they told Carl that they owed them $8,000. As the discussion turned heated, Mark struck Carl on the head with a wooden plank. Jason then drew out a pistol and aimed it at Carl's head, who was now lying on the ground, wounded and begging for his life. Mark urged Jason to shoot him in the head. Jason thought that he couldn't just kill him. He fired a single shot into Carl's stomach instead. The bullet didn't kill Carl, and after the brothers left, he managed to walk himself home to his parents' house. Upon entering his parents' house, he pretended that nothing was wrong. He took a shower and attempted to treat the wound, but after a few hours, Carl became dizzy and struggled to stand. His parents took him to the hospital, where an X-ray revealed that the bullet was still lodged in his body. This event marked a significant turning point, intensifying the growing hostility between Carl and the Moran family. He wanted both Mark and Jason dead, along with their father Lewis. Driven by anger, Carl started gathering any information he could on the family, their movements and activities, and with his connections to the underworld, he was able to get the information he needed. Carl wanted to kill Mark as his first target. He saw him as the brains of the family, and a much greater threat than Jason. Carl believed that if he killed Jason first, Mark would stop at nothing to retaliate, and would likely succeed. However, Carl's revenge was delayed by an unexpected setback when the police arrived at his home. At this time, Carl's father George was also involved in his drug-making operations. Inside Carl's home, detectives uncovered a large-scale drug operation setup, complete with a pill press and significant quantities of powdered amphetamines. On the 25th of November 1999, Carl and his father George Williams were arrested. The police had seized over $20 million worth of drugs, and both men faced the possibility of lengthy prison sentences. However, both Carl and George were granted bail on the 22nd of January 2000. This period of bail stretched for years, allowing Carl to continue his criminal activities as the legal proceedings remained in limbo. Now out on bail and fueled by revenge, Carl began plotting against the family, and he was able to acquire 2 shotguns. Carl then learned that Jason had been arrested and was in jail. He saw this as the perfect opportunity to take out Mark. On the 15th of June 2000, Carl found where Mark lived and turned up at his home. He decided to goad Mark into stepping outside of his house by making a phone call. Mark was unaware of who was on the phone, but feeling invincible in his territory, he walked outside of his house. He did this despite repeated warnings from his wife. As Mark walked further outside, out of range of his home security system, Carl jumped out and ambushed him, dressed in all black. Carl pulled out the concealed sawn-off shotgun and shot Mark dead. The news quickly spread around Melbourne. It didn't take long for the Moran family to realize that Carl Williams and his crew were behind Mark's murder. Carl was eager for recognition, so he made sure word got out, revealing his involvement in the murder. And with this, the family officially declared war against Carl Williams and his crew. When Jason was granted day release from prison to attend his brother's funeral, he vowed to kill Carl. Unable to reach Carl from inside prison, Jason hired a feared hitman named Benji Veneerman. Benji successfully infiltrated Carl's inner circle, becoming one of his trusted gang members. However, instead of carrying out the hit, Benji grew close to Carl and was charmed by his personality. He ultimately switched sides, betraying the family by not fulfilling the contract. Although Carl was arrested on previous drug trafficking charges, jailing him from the 19th of May 2001 to the 17th of July 2002. Upon his release, Carl quickly resumed his plan to kill Jason. However, during his time in jail, his control over his criminal empire had weakened, allowing his competitors to grow in influence and threaten his business. One of these competitors was a man named Nikolai the Russian Radev. The Russian was born in Bulgaria in 1959 and arrived in Australia in 1980. Over 2 decades, he amassed a reputation for ruthlessly extorting associates, claiming they owed him money and often putting a price tag on their lives. He was known for his intimidating presence. His criminal activities included threatening police officers and their families, and he was even suspected of the murders of 2 detectives. By the year 2003, the Russian had begun trafficking large quantities of heroin into St Kilda, Melbourne. Carl allegedly had to do something about this. He used his charm and business skills to manipulate the Russian into a vulnerable position, under the guise of striking up a lucrative business deal. On the 15th of April 2003, Carl sent Benji to a pre-arranged meeting with the Russian. As the Russian drove his $100,000 Mercedes to the meeting, Benji intercepted him at a junction. Leaping out of his car, Benji opened fire, unloading a barrage of bullets into the Russian. He then pulled out another gun and continued shooting. The attack was so brutal that the Russian was left riddled with bullets, resembling, quote, Swiss cheese, according to media reports at the time. Carl then realized that by paying others like Benji to carry out the killings, Carl could eliminate his enemies whilst keeping his own hands clean. 3 years had passed since Jason had shot Carl, but Carl still wanted revenge. Consumed with this revenge, Carl put out a hit on Jason. Jason then became aware of the contract on his life, and so he became cautious, moving discreetly and hiring a full-time bodyguard named Pascal. However, this wasn't enough to ensure his safety. Carl received information that Jason would frequently attend his children's football training every Saturday morning. With this information, plans were made and a date was set. On Saturday the 21st of June 2003, after spending over an hour cheering on the kids, Jason and his bodyguard Pascal loaded Jason's twins and the other children, including Jason's nephews, into their blue Mitsubishi van. As they buckled themselves in, a killer approached. Victor Brinkert. This was Carl's hired gunman. Victor walked up to the driver's side window wielding a shotgun. Victor unloaded the shotgun, firing directly into Jason's face. The blast of the weapon narrowly missed the children, as brain matter splattered all across the vehicle and across the children. He then pulled out a revolver and shot Pascal multiple times. Victor fled, leaving behind 2 dead men and a van full of traumatized children. The brutality of killing a man in front of children showed Carl's ruthless determination. Even more chilling, Carl reportedly told his wife, Roberta, to wear her best dress that night, as they would be going out to celebrate. Carl had built immense power, wealth, and loyalty within his gang, and with Jason gone, he felt unstoppable. And he gained a taste for eliminating those who had wronged him. He decided on another target. Next was Willie Thompson, a former associate who had fallen into debt and owed Carl approximately $900,000. Carl knew that Willie could not repay him, and so he decided that it was time for retribution. On the 21st of July 2003, 39-year-old Willie Thompson left the Extreme Jiu-Jitsu and Grappling Club on Waverley Road, Chadstone. Despite the bustling street, Carl's gunman ambushed him as he got into his car. 2 vehicles rushed him, and Willie was shot dead at close range before the attackers fled from the scene. This marked the 4th murder orchestrated by Carl, or at least under his orders. Up until this point, law enforcement had kept a distance from the escalating gang violence, considering it an internal affair among the criminals. However, this approach was about to change, because one of the bullets fired in Willie's execution missed its target and came dangerously close to hitting a bystander. This prompted the police to create a task force to end the deadly gang wars. Meanwhile, Carl had another target that required his attention. He learned that a man named Mark Mallier, the right-hand man of the Russian, was plotting revenge against him. However, Carl devised a plan not only to kill him, but also extract valuable information about the Russians' drug supplies and cash reserves. On the 17th of August 2003, Carl and his men led Mallier into a house where they ambushed him. In a garage, they tied Mallier to a chair and tortured him with baseball bats, cigarettes, and a soldering iron, hoping he would reveal the location of the Russians' assets. Despite hours of torture, he refused to give up any information, and so Carl's men killed him, stuffed his body into a wheelie bin, dumped it into a drain, and set it on fire. Passers-by noticed the smoke rising from the storm drain and alerted the authorities to the grisly scene. Meanwhile, in the criminal underworld, there was uncertainty about who ordered the hit on Willie Thompson. Taking advantage of this confusion, Carl started a rumour that it was a hitman named Michael Marshall, a kickboxer, and a hot dog stand owner. As the rumour spread, a bounty was eventually placed on Michael's head. Seizing the opportunity, Carl arranged for Michael's murder. On the 25th of October 2003, Michael Marshall was ambushed and shot outside his South Yarra home in front of his 5-year-old son. As he stepped out of his car, Carl's henchmen fired multiple rounds into him, killing him on his front lawn. At this point, Carl Williams believed himself to be untouchable, reigning as the self-proclaimed king of Melbourne's underworld. The police began linking Carl Williams to the multiple murders, putting him directly in their crosshairs. When Carl learned that the detectives were closing in on him, he plotted to kill their lead investigator. However, the police uncovered his plan, leading to Carl's arrest on the 17th of November 2003. In a bizarre turn of events, Carl, known for his ruthless demeanour, broke down hysterically during his arrest, crying, begging, and even wetting himself. Although despite this, the authorities lacked sufficient evidence to hold him, so after a few days in custody, Carl was released. Upon his release, he left the police station with a renewed swagger, reportedly organising a $200,000 celebration at Melbourne's Crown Casino. This incident catapulted him into the national spotlight, and Carl began presenting himself to the media as a victim of police corruption, claiming that he had never even been violent. He maintained his innocence in interviews, but when questioned about how he made his fortune, Carl claimed that he made his money gambling. Meanwhile, tensions grew within Melbourne's older generation of criminals. Lewis Moran was furious over the murders of his 2 sons at Carl's orders, and now he wanted revenge. Lewis's close ally and fellow gang lord, Graham the Munster Kinniburgh, had also lost patience with Carl's growing influence. Lewis and Graham met to discuss how they could deal with Carl. However, Carl soon learned of these plans. So in response, Carl ordered Benji, his trusted hitman, to take action. And on the 13th of December 2003, Benji, along with another gunman, ambushed Graham outside his home and fatally shot him. Seeking revenge for this murder, Lewis and his gang lured Benji to a gang hideout and killed him with his own gun. Carl was devastated. Benji had been his closest ally. On the 31st of March 2004, Lewis was at the Brunswick Club Hotel. This was his usual drinking spot with his bodyguard, Herbert Rout. At 6:40 p.m, 2 of Carl's masked gunmen stormed the venue. Lewis attempted to flee, scrambling over a poker machine and crashing through a glass window. But one of the gunmen caught up to him and shot him twice in the back of the head. His bodyguard Herbert was also shot with a shotgun, but he was able to survive the attack. But Carl wasn't done yet. He ordered a hit on a man named Mario, a prominent lawyer for several of his rivals. The police soon learned of this hit, and on the 9th of June 2004, Carl was arrested for conspiracy to murder. He was eventually found guilty of drug trafficking charges, and was sentenced on the 29th of October 2004 to 7 years in prison. The police continued their work and convicted several of Carl's henchmen in connection to the murder of Michael Marshall. In this case, they entered a plea deal. They gave information regarding Carl's role within the case, and on the 19th of July 2006, Carl Williams was sentenced to 26 years imprisonment for the murder of Michael Marshall. With Carl locked up, his men were not keen to maintain their loyalty, and they eventually ratted him out, and on the 26th of February 2007, Carl was charged with the murders of Lewis, Jason, and Mark. And on the 7th of May 2007, Carl was given a minimum term of 35 years imprisonment. This would mean that he would have to be 71 years old before he would be free again. But this day will never come. Carl was imprisoned in Barwon Prison, and on the 19th of April 2010, he met his end. On that day in prison, Carl was seated at a table, casually flipping through a magazine. Unbeknownst to him, tensions were simmering nearby. A fellow hardened inmate named Matthew Johnson had been harbouring resentment towards Carl. The exact motive remains debated. Some suggest it was due to Carl's cooperation with police, while others claim it was due to a personal dispute. The exact reason we will likely never know. But on this day, Matthew was able to detach the stem of an exercise bike in the unit, a hefty piece of metal. As Carl sat reading his magazine, Matthew approached him from behind. The unit's security cameras recorded the terrifying moment. Without warning, Matthew swung the steel bar with brute force, striking Carl on the head. Matthew then stood over the once notorious gangster and continued to deliver several more strikes upon his head, ensuring that Carl would not survive. Prison guards swiftly ascended and rushed into the unit. By the time they reached Carl, he was already dead. Blood had pooled around him as he lay slumped over the table. His magazine was still open. Carl was pronounced dead at the scene. The attack was so brutal that his skull was cracked open. The aftermath of the murder sparked widespread outrage and scrutiny. How could such a high-profile inmate be killed in such a high-security prison? Matthew showed no remorse and later claimed that he acted in self-defense. In 2011, he was convicted of the murder of Carl and was sentenced to life in prison. The case of Carl is a grim reminder of the sheer brutality of the criminal underworld.